Hey there, welcome back to Wild Bird Farm. I garden here in Zone 5 in central Iowa. Today we're going to take a closer look at the bed behind me. Now I've really been working on maturing this bed over the last couple of years, and I've also worked on transitioning color palettes from season to season, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. If you're new here, I have a lot of landscaping around my home, always a work in progress. And then I also run a small flower farm where we do several U-Pick events throughout the season, as well as me bringing weekly wrapped retail bouquets to a couple of local grocery stores. So that keeps me busy here as my side hustle. I also work off farm. I am in the IT information technology industry, so that keeps me going, as well as I have some busy kids. If you can't hear behind me, the chickens are out this morning making a bit of noise. We try and keep them more on the farm side of things and out of the home landscape, but that doesn't always work, so we'll see if they come down to visit. So I will get you off the tripod in a little bit and we'll take a closer look at this bed. But to talk about the color transitions through this season, early in the season, we start mostly with the bright yellow daffodils. They have really naturalized here in this bed and they fill it up quite well. Recently, I also added some muscari and other little blue accents. So early in the season, we have yellow and blue. And then as we transition out of that, my next color palette is in the purple colorway. And I have several plants that add to that color. You can see behind me that we have some Dutch iris almost in bloom. I have some large alliums, purple, that have just started blooming. Some of my ground cover, my phlox, is purple. And then we also have some white accents. So those fill out the bed pretty well in late spring with the purple and kind of silver white color palette. And then I came in just 2 days ago and I planted out some annuals that are going to come up hot pink. So I want to do a very vibrant color palette of white and hot pink out here through the summer months. And then as we round into fall, fall is the season that I need to add more over here for. I have several mums and they are kind of a dusty pink and a creamy yellow. So we kind of go into that for fall, but I know that I definitely need to up my game here for the fall season. But right now we are transitioning. We're gonna have the purple color palette here for a couple more weeks. And as I said, I just planted out the hot summer annuals. So those are kind of sprinkled throughout. And then as the purple dies back, then hopefully my ideal plan is the white and the chartreuse pink is really gonna start popping in this garden bed. Okay, I'm gonna do my best to keep my shadow out of here. I was gonna come out earlier and I just didn't quite get it done. So now the sun is pretty bright. You'll see the mums throughout. Now they're just gonna add a nice touch of green until they start blooming in August, September. But you can see over here a lot of the daffodils. Now I'm gonna let that foliage die down. I don't tie it or braid it or cut it. I just let it die down naturally. It actually works as sort of a little bit of shade for the new annuals that I just planted out. Funny enough, our last expected frost date was only 12 days ago, and we are going into a 5-day stretch in the mid and upper 80s. So planting out little plants like this always makes me a little bit nervous in the heat. But when you can tuck them in between plants to give them a little bit of shade, that sort of helps keep them from getting too sunburned. So I like that the daffodil greens are still up and going to give these guys a little bit of protection throughout the day. Now you can see I put in some bright pink and chocolate coleus. These aren't going to get real big. They have ruffly leaves. You can really see the ruffles starting. They're just going to be a nice maybe 12 to 16 inch mound. So I'm hoping that these will fill in as the daffodils die down. Now let me get my shadow out of here. So I've sprinkled the coleus throughout. I also have zonal geraniums that I started from seed. This was a mixed bag that I started first last year, pinks and whites. So I think those will fill in nicely. I added a container here. I put an asparagus fern in the middle and then vincas around it. They really like heat. I chose a hot pink and a white. Now I also added in some perennial white salvia. There's the tag. You're going to see some of this throughout. These are the two things in the pot. I am a little worried that the asparagus fern is going to get too big, and if it does, we'll just get it out of here. I like to put mulch right in my planting pots. This is another trick. If you live in a hot climate, that's going to help keep the soil moist and cool a little bit longer. So these are some that are really going to put on growth for high summer. Now you can see throughout I have some Nicotiana. This is a shorter bedding variety and it is hot pink. So I'm excited that that's going to fill in. Here's a couple close-ups of our beautiful alliums and then the Dutch iris that are going to be in bloom, of course, probably later this week since we're going to get such hot weather. We have some phlox. This will remain green. I probably need to get in here and do a little bit of cutting back on some of that. Now I also sprinkled some vincas throughout as well as the coleus, and we'll go over there and look a little bit closer because everyone has been so crazy about the poppies and they are coming up like gangbusters. Here's actually our first Dutch iris, and don't mind that grass in the patch. I do need to weed that out. I added in a little bit of garden art this year. Let's see if we go way down, you can see there is another zonal geranium. Here's that white silvery color ground cover. This is a really early one. This is about done blooming. And then we have, this is the creamy yellow mum and another geranium. Don't mind my hoses with it being so hot. Everything is getting watered pretty frequently. Now this is actually the front of the bed. I put some more of the vincas, and then you can see these big puffy pink peony type poppies, and they are all over this bed, and I am so excited. They kind of look like lettuce to me as they're coming up. You don't want to weed those out, especially if you've forgotten that you planted them, if you've done it a while ago. And just for comparison, you can see that this coleus, which this coleus likes full sun, by the way. We're on the south side, so it's going to get a lot of sun. You can see that this one doesn't look quite as good as those others that were planted amongst the daffodils. This is getting kind of beat up by the sun. Another mum. Now I do cut my hardy garden mums back. I'll probably be doing that in the next couple weeks. That's just going to delay their flowering until later in the season, which is what I want. And then we kind of round back out to where those daffodils are providing some shade. In addition to using some established plants as sort of shade for those new seedlings you're planting out, my other top tip as you are planting out in the heat is to do it in the evening. When I first started gardening, I thought, oh, I have to get out there at 8 or 9 a.m. and get all these seedlings planted. Well, that sets them up for a very hot first 12 hours of their life outside. So they're just going to see hotter and hotter sun throughout the day. Instead of doing that, I now come out as late as I can, whether it's 6 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. or 20 minutes before the sun goes down, and I plant all of these annual bedding plants. I water them in well, like we talked about. I use hardwood, real mulch around them, and then they have a full 12 hours before they're seeing the harsh sun. That gives them a little bit of time to acclimate. Now, if they can have part shade during the day, that's going to help them. We saw there with the coleus that those that have a little protection look like they're doing better than those that are straight out in a hot garden bed. But if you can plant your plants in the evening, water them in well, give them mulch, then they're going to have that first 12 hours, maybe even 14 hours before the sun is really beating on them the next day. So that is definitely my top tip. Now, to end this video, I didn't want to end on a down note, but we have some bummer news with the lavender strip. So I planted this out 3 and 4 years ago. The first year I got plugs in, I planted them out. Half of them died off. So I came in and took cuttings from the ones that were still alive, and I refilled this bed in. Now I have little pea gravel is what it is planted in, which is what lavender prefers. They're on the south side. They're getting beat with sun every day. I don't really add supplemental water, and past years they looked absolutely awesome. Now when I came out here in early spring to trim them back, I saw a little bit of green, but I didn't see a lot, and it kind of worried me. And I thought, you know, they're late to push growth. Just trim them back and don't worry about them. Well, now we are in mid-May, and the lavender that I have planted around the rest of the farm, I have some on the west side of the house. I have some on the west side of the shop. I have some out in the pollinator strip. All of that has a decent amount of green, and this here has none. So I'm pretty sure that this died over the winter. This is on the south side again. I don't give it protection. It's a little protected just with the block here. I thought that would help hold the heat in. I really think this is an ideal location for lavender, but I might be missing something because it looks like every single one died off. So that's pretty disappointing. The other thing, I was so excited this year. I dropped poppy seeds back behind the lavender, and there are so many seedlings. And it was going to be so beautiful in June to have the lavender blooming with these big pink peony poppies behind it. I thought that combination was just going to be wonderful. So I don't think that's going to be an option this year. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I'm going to give it another week or two. I'm going to get right down at the base and kind of scratch the stem and see if any of it's green. If it's not, if it's all brittle like it looks to be, I'm going to end up ripping all of this out. I'm not sure if I'll get annuals maybe just to plant here this year. I'm not sure if I'll try lavender here again. This, I believe, was the Hidcoat lavender, and then I have a different variety everywhere else. So if I do put lavender back here, I'm going to take cuttings from my other areas and try and do the different variety. I'll write the varieties on the screen. I can't think of them right offhand. So I'm not sure if I'll put lavender back in here, or maybe I'll go with something different. So that's kind of the bummer. It was a total surprise. This came back for a couple of winters now and just looked really good and had filled in nicely. So I'm pretty bummed to say that I am about 90% sure that it's all dead. So needless to say, while I'm disappointed at the lavender, I am really pretty thrilled with this bed. Now I have the whole secret garden that I need to build up to look as good as this, as well as continuing to work on the front and sides of our home landscape. So lots more to come there. And then we also have our pollinator strip, which is pushing up new growth from a lot of native plants. And I'm excited to give you guys a tour of that as well. Please like and subscribe, consider sharing with a friend, and I'll see you next time.